around about 3 or 4 days ago, we got a phone call from a guy who had, from an older gentleman who bought a piece of equipment, had it installed in his house, and it wasn't working properly. So he calls us and says, hey, can you come out and fix this? So we go out, we take a look at this thing, and it's installed completely wrong, like completely wrong, like top to bottom, like it's a complete tear out and reinstall it. That's how badly this is installed. So, and I don't have, we kind of have this little conversation where I kind of don't have the heart to tell this old guy, like, dude, this is going to cost you thousands of dollars to undo this because you went to the wrong guy. You didn't find somebody with experience, right, to put this in for you. Had you gone to people who had experience and knew what they were doing specifically with equipment like this, we could have saved you many thousands of dollars. Now it's going to end up costing you significantly more than had you just called us in the first place. What can we learn from this? Well, this is for anybody who's been around, for my Gen Xers out there. You know what I'm talking about. You've been around a little while and you kind of know how this stuff works, right? Because you've been doing this for a little while and you're like, yeah, I already know what happened. Any of my blue collar guys, they'll all say the same thing, like, all my mechanics and everything, they're all going to go, yeah, that's how it is, unfortunately. And it's costing you way more money in the long run than if you just found somebody who knew what the hell they were actually doing. So, the U.S. is a complete teardown at this point, and because you keep putting people in positions that haven't got a fucking clue what they're doing, like no idea what they're doing with this whole situation. Look at the way that they handle it. They're just trying to make money off of it. They're not actually trying to solve any kind of problem. That's pretty obvious at this point. I think that I don't care how purple your hair is and how much shit you have dangling out of your nose, or what kind of suit you're wearing, or what set you're claiming, so to speak. Like, that doesn't really matter. I think that pretty much everybody, whether you are on the crazy ass left or the ridiculous fucking retard right, I think that we can pretty well come together on the idea that whatever this is, it ain't working for anybody. Like this isn't working for anyone who is trying to function in a normal society at this point. So I think that the way to look at this would be to say, well, how do we find people of experience? Well, this is the tricky part. You know where experience comes from? And my Gen Xers are going to start nodding here shortly. Experience comes from failure. It comes from trying shit and then it not working. And then you try it again and it doesn't work. And you try it and it doesn't again. Like that's how you learn all this stuff. And that's how you get and after a while, you get really good at it. So what you end up with is something called experience. Experience comes from failing repeatedly. A lot of people out there, you go to the people, you do the opposite. What you're doing is you're going to the wrong people. You're going to the people who have never had failures and saying, oh my God, this is the way to do it. That's, by the way, how you know you're being conned. Just so you know, in case you guys didn't know that, whenever you see somebody get up on a stage, at the airport Marriott or any other place for that matter, and they start talking to you about all their spectacular successes and how awesome everything is, and how that's huge, and how much money they have, and on and on, and it's like it's usually a red flag, because what they're saying is that they value their successes more than their failures. Right? That's what they're telling you. They're telegraphing that, and that's not where your experience is going to come from. What you end up with is a bunch of people who don't have any fucking experience. They have no clue what they're doing, none, because they haven't had any kind of failures that they can look back on and go, okay, hold on. And it also changes their humility, right? They're able to talk like right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand. Okay. So that's how this works. So the people that are talking to you straight, they probably have like an avalanche of failures they can point to, where they lost over and over and over and over and over. So rather than going to these people, this is just a suggestion, rather than going to all these guys who don't have any real experience or failures, anybody who's never lost, right? Then because you'll just keep getting what you keep getting, which is just more of a con, instead of someone telling you the truth and saying, listen, it doesn't work that way. You are not going to get out of this world without working. You are not going to. You're not going to. You might win a lottery, maybe. Right? It's random luck, but you might. You might work really hard on something, and it might work out for you at that time. Right? Opportunity preparedness. Yeah, sure. I mean, that might work. The question is, can it be done again? That's of course, I already did a video on that, but that's the question, is like, can you do it again? And can somebody else duplicate it? Because if the answer is no, then it's like, well, it kind of works for you, but it's not going to work for everybody else. Well, that's fine. One of the things we do know that work for everybody, for the most part, of course, is hard currency. That's what I talk about a lot here. That if we have a hard currency, then that's pretty much like baseline. That's your base, and then whoever works the most gets to keep the fruits of their labor. That was the deal of the U.S., by the way. It's an annoying thing whenever I see these conversations, and I'm actually answering another question, by the way. I'm not rambling. I'm actually answering like 3 or 4 questions by doing this that I get. And when I see you guys arguing about communism, capitalism, back and forth, like those are invented words by pseudo-intellectuals like Marx, okay, in the 19th century. Those are like, look, you need to be able to talk plainly to people. And you either have a free market or you do not. That's it. That's the end of it. Okay. There's no anytime you start putting isms, and I've been all over this. Anytime you guys start arguing about this shit, if I start asking you to define all these words that come pouring out of your mouths, most of you just lock up and you got nothing, because it's either a free market, free market. 3 syllables, 2 words, okay? Easy. Capitalism, dude, fucking too many goddamn syllables, okay? It means it's a made-up word that somebody just kind of invented as a euphemism. Same thing with communism. All these different words. Most of this shit is just a fucking heist. Most of it. So, if you want a free market, it's really simple to understand. And those of us with experience, and those of us that have watched all this failure over and over and over, and have lived through it, and done all these things where we've played the game and lost, just over and over and over, okay? That's who's going to have your most experience, and that's why they can see a lot of this stuff coming a mile away, that everybody's seeing now. They're like, oh my God, what's happening? It's because this is all very predictable behavior that you're seeing all over the world, but particularly in the U.S. right now, and in across the pond over in Britain, the country formerly known as Britain. In the U.S., by the way, is no better, Brits. I mean, we're just a landmass wedged in between Mexico and Canada, apparently, that don't even have a border. So, so we're not faring a whole lot better here. But if you want people with experience, then you need to go to the people who have lost a lot, and they learn from it, and that's where you're going to find. That's where you're going to find your people. That's where you're going to find your best candidates. It is not counterintuitive. It is not. It's actually very intuitive, because that's what you're looking for, is someone who's actually tried a lot of this stuff in real life. So, to the guy who installed the customer stuff, right, to harken back to that, he didn't know what he was doing, and he failed, right? And it's going to cost this customer a lot of money. Like a lot, for us to fix it, if he wants to do it. Otherwise, he has just a big boat anchor in his backyard. So let this be a lesson that sometimes it's better to actually stop and think before you do something, and read the terrain first, and look around.